Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I know.
Really?
It's exact. Most founders have that exact reaction.
Who made these rules?
That there needs to be a better way to do this.
That is the kill switch.
It is.
If you don't get it right.
Absolutely.
Fundraising, capital management is central to this.
A lot of founders make mistakes at this stage.
Wow.
Capital management is a domain that not a lot of founders have experience with. We help manage their ownership, model dilution, and really maintain control of their equity.
Are you the only solution in the market?
We're built in the region for the region.
Cap table management was almost a manual.
Multiple sheets, as you can imagine. It's quite
Messy.
shocking. Yeah, exactly, 100%. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
We thought long and hard about it.
Okay.
Began looking for solutions that could automate this process. You have more ESOPs in place. You have more safes to convert. You
Yes.
have more pools, right?
Yeah.
You know, investors wanted to constantly understand how much do I effectively own at this stage. You sell the business tomorrow for, let's say, $3 million.
Dang.
I get 2, and the rest is distributed amongst your founders and other people.
Why as a founder would I sign up for them?
That's a very good question. It's a negotiation.
That's predatory, sorry.
Capital is no longer cheap, right? If I participate in this round, if I don't, what's going to be my dilutive impact? I need to receive back 2, regardless of what you sell it for.
Whatever capital you deploy actually gets you to profitability, and therefore raising capital becomes more a strategic choice.
Exactly.
Than,
That's a position that you want
that's
to
a
be in.
position of strength.
You always
Position
want
where you want to be.
100%.
Will you invest in a token?
I would invest in token, yes.
Good, great.
100%.
Good. You have
Absolutely.
founding tribe member here.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Welcome to Block by Block, covering the future of finance. Today, we have Marco, co-founder from CapQuest.
Yep.
I'm excited about how this conversation will go today. We're going to talk all things fundraising, cap table management, and obviously building in Dubai.
Yep.
Welcome.
Thank you,
Marco.
man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Definitely. So before we actually talk a bit more about who you are and what CapQuest is about,
Sure.
I recall that we met around this period of time.
Yeah.
Dubai FinTech Summit.
Correct.
Right?
That's right.
So honestly, when I met you and you mentioned, well, I asked you, what are you in? And then you said, cap table management. I'm like, yeah, okay. I wasn't too sure what that was, but
There you go.
it was funny. But there's where we met, right?
That's
First
right.
time. And then secondly, we met at Orasea's,
that's right.
one of the, how do you call it? A sandbox
program, exactly.
So that was actually quite funny that we met there. We're now working together.
100%. I mean, now not only your client, but a partner as well too. Awesome to have to be here as well too.
Right. It's a small world.
It is.
Small world.
It is. Honestly, I saw you walk into Orasea and I said, hold on. I met you a year ago, in very different context. And at the time you were in consulting and learning as well too.
Correct.
But awesome to see that you've joined this side of things and are building in Dubai as well too, man.
Yeah, it's fabulous. And honestly, since I've started with Tribe, understanding fundraising, cap table management has skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, obviously, the other side of the table, I had some insight, but being an operator is totally different, right? And we're going to talk about some of these things. But
for sure.
Before we do that, I'm sure we all want to know who's Marco.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, we'll cover CapQuest. But first, who's Marco? Tell us more about
Awesome. Yeah. So again, thanks for having me here. Yeah. Pleasure. So as you mentioned, Marco, I'm co-founder of CapQuest.
Yeah.
And I lead product development within the company.
Okay.
As we all do at this stage, wearing multiple hats, right? So as you know, also involved in some of the commercial roles here and business development as well too.
The perks of being a builder.
The perks of being a builder, exactly, 100%. But predominantly focus on the product side of things. Initially from Brazil.
Yeah.
But I've been now in Dubai for close to 7 years, and I've been in the product space for 14.
Okay.
Operated across different verticals, from prop tech to gaming to food tech as well too.
Okay, you went quite fast. Born and raised in Brazil?
That's right, yeah. Born and raised in
How's Brazil like?
Good, amazing, man. Amazing.
I recall talking about, Tribe as a property tokenization platform.
Right.
And so in the blockchain space, I do recall that I guess Brazil was one of the first jurisdictions to allow or adopt crypto. Right? There are quite a number of crypto exchanges there, right?
Tremendously. Absolutely. I mean, there are a lot of companies operating in that space. Yeah. And even if you look at stablecoin adaptation as well too, adoption rather, that's growing tremendously throughout the country for, cross-border payments. Brazil's leading the front in that as well too. Yeah. So for sure. And, tremendous real estate ecosystem as well too. So maybe the next step for you guys.
Maybe next step. After you.
There you go. Exactly, man.
Funny thing, whenever people ask me, where's my wife from? I always tell them, she's from a country next to Brazil. Okay. Why? Because they never know where Suriname is. But everyone knows where Brazil is.
There we go.
There we go. What brought you in UAE?
So actually, long story short, I went to high school here actually many years ago. You know, kind of the expat story. My father was CEO here for a very large Brazilian multinational.
Still exists?
Still exists, yeah.
So what is it? What do they do?
It's called Sadia. So Sadia, so it's in the poultry space, essentially. Yeah, so he led that here for a long time. And I went to high school here, and I think I always like to say that my generation we were the first cohort of kids who came to Dubai but stayed, right? So a lot of parents grew their roots here and stayed. And so I went to college in the States, then I moved back to Brazil, where I began my career in product management. But I always had a calling to come back, and I had a lot of friends that stayed, and so I did a bit of a sabbatical. I came here in 2017, we met a lot of people, and I had a calling to come back, and so I came back, and my journey there continued in product and different verticals here as well too. Okay, nice. Yeah.
You also shortly covered, the different industries you were covering.
Correct.
So could you walk us through the industries you've been involved in? What of products you have developed? We just want to understand the type of profile behind it.
Yeah, for sure. So I began my career working in prop tech in Brazil. Actually, Brazil.
Also, you started with prop tech.
Started with prop tech. Yeah, more in the real estate search engine element of things. Brazil was and continues to be, a powerhouse in the sense in terms of it's a huge market. We were just talking about the fact that Brazil is one of those countries where you can build a unicorn operating in just one single country, right? It's really, really massive, 200 million plus people. And the prop tech space, the property rather, within the real estate search engine is quite fragmented in Brazil. And so there's a lot of potential to be done there. So I began working in a prop tech in Brazil, operating there. I quickly, after a few years, moved into mobile gaming, actually. Brazil was and continues to be, again, very, very active in this. A lot of gaming companies actually use Brazil as a launch pad for some of their games. So they test the games there. It's a very gaming centered, the youth is super into this, right? And so, I began working in mobile gaming, but that was a firsthand experience really into building games and products really that scale, that had, hundreds of millions of global downloads.
What type of games are we talking about?
These are casual word games within the mobile space, right? So, not as, hip and new as what the kids are playing today for sure. But definitely, from an LTV perspective, from monetization perspective, very interesting because you're looking at older thresholds in terms of people that you're focusing on, right?
Correct.
At the time, more disposable income and things of this nature. But really, my first-hand experience into building products at scale. So games we worked on there had, hundreds of millions of downloads around the world.
Wow.
And then I moved back to Dubai, actually, as I mentioned, 2018, a very strong calling. I love the city, I love the environments, and I love the ecosystem that was here. And my journey continued there, working also and building a food tech in the food tech space here. So we worked on an application focused actually in the restaurant loyalty space. And for that, kind of the journey invariably led to CapQuest, because in that we raised a few different rounds. We had a lot of employees that had RSU plans, and the complications began there. And our CFO and my CEO today, Antoine, was managing the cap table at the time. And that's where the complexity, that's how we met, and that's how...
This is a great segue, actually, because now we've entered into CapQuest.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us more about that origin story of CapQuest.
Of course. So as I mentioned, we were previously at a company. I was leading product, and he was the CFO and GM. And
how did you guys meet, by the way?
We met at that company. I was leading product, and he was
Antoine.
As Antoine, exactly. Yep. He was our CFO and general manager, and he was managing the cap table. And after years of fundraising, after raising a considerable amount and having a lot of employees, as I mentioned, with ESOPs and everything, it got really complicated to manage, right? And it became...
Was it like a paper trail?
Excel, all of that, right? And frankly, he had to manage that on a monthly basis. He had to get it up to date. He had, a lot of operational hurdles around that. And he thought to himself that there needs to be a better way to do this, kind of the old origin story, as you said. At the time, there were, few players, if any, in this space. And there was obviously what did exist, we found that really did not adhere to the local nuances of what we needed, right? Price-wise, obviously, it was, of course, outside of what we were and many companies in the region were willing to pay. But more than anything, we found that it was not localized to the region, to the pain points that we felt as founders and we felt as operators in this space, right? So he always knew there was a potential there to build something that was very different, that again, follow the requirements and needs of the local ecosystem and of local founders as well too, right? So we set up, we put our brains together, we decided to put our brains together.
Soft brains.
Exactly. So I'll tell you a bit about him as well, and our third co-founder as well.
But before you do that, we really want to know, how much do you guys raise? Just give me a range.
Right now?
No, for the food company.
For the previous one, we raised over the course of, I think, 5 years, like north of $10 million.
$10 million. And like you explained, cap table management was almost a manual.
It was a manual process. I mean, it was Excel sheets, with multiple sheets, as you can imagine, right? And but what was at the time, I think, what the big challenge was that investors wanted to constantly understand what was their change in their equity, in their capital in the business, because after so many rounds, you have dilution, you have maybe some secondaries that happen, you have, of course, employee pools that are added, and that dilutes everyone as well. So the end picture, right, of equity became more difficult to understand as the rounds went on, and a lot of investors wanted this transparency of understanding. Okay, hold on, how much do I effectively own at this stage? And that question, it increased the more stakeholders that you have in the company,
of course,
and of course the underlying math and logic behind everything became increasingly so more complex, right? And so really it became an operational hurdle for him, right? Not only cap table, but investor relations, of managing kind of this back and forth of understanding, of constantly having to send updated, spreadsheets and everything.
So help us understand. So Antoine, your co-founder now, quite an operational burden to keep cap table management, in order for the stakeholders at that point in time.
Right.
Was that his only job, or?
No, that was part of his job.
But it consumed quite...
Frustratingly so, exactly. It began consuming a tremendous amount of his time. And we began looking for solutions that could automate this process, and we really weren't satisfied with what existed, right? But to answer your question, I mean, it became a weekly activity that he had to focus on, right? And very annoying.
So when did CapQuest originally officially got incorporated?
So that was 2 years ago. We officially incorporated. But that was kind of what we did when we first began this journey. Really, we wanted to build a solution that adhered to not only the needs of kind of the local community, but we also made sure to interview actually, close to 70 CFOs and CEOs of both early stage, growth stage, and enterprise level companies around the world.
Around the world, not only the region.
And we were able to have exposure, luckily, to CEOs and CFOs of actually pre-IPO companies as well, who themselves were managing their cap table, believe it or not, on Excels. Right?
Oh, really?
To very early stage.
Pre-IPO stage.
Pre-IPO stage. It's quite shocking. Exactly, 100%. At this point, you have hundreds of stakeholders, right?
Wow.
Very, very difficult to maintain, to automate. But you'll be surprised. That happens quite often, actually.
Wow.
And so we set out kind of a very important design journey where we spoke to and interviewed, as I mentioned, close to 70, 75 CEOs and CFOs across the region and internationally as well too, right? To understand what were the pain points of both early stage, growth stage, and enterprise level companies, to really make sure that we were building a product that felt, that understood these pain points and adhered to these as well. So to really bridge this gap between what founders needed to know and the technicalities around cap tables. And that's what we did. It was more than a year of a design journey between speaking to different founders and speaking to CFOs, really the operators behind this, right? A lot of times, initially, as a founder, you're the one that's doing this, but at one point you reach a scale where you delegate this as a CFO as well too, right? So we ended up speaking to a lot of CFOs as well too, to exactly understand what those pain points were. To build a solution that would scale as the company scales as well too.
Okay, sounds good. So we will cover fundraising in quite, detailed form. We'll also cover what I love to cover is some of these operational challenges you're talking about.
Of course.
So before we do that, one more question regarding CapQuest. Could you give us an overview of the types of clients you're servicing, the industries they're in, maybe some size parameters, so that we can understand, where you actually fit within the whole ecosystem?
Absolutely. So I'm going to take one step back and explain what CapQuest kind of is and what it encompasses, and I'm happy to answer that question as well. So CapQuest is a cap table and investor relations management platform, right? And at its core, we help founders really manage their ownership, model dilution, and really maintain control of their equity as they scale, right? So as company scales, like Tribe, right? So do the complexities of ownership, right? You have more ESOPs in place. You have more safes to convert. You have more pools, right? And you might have other convertibles. And so that complexity really grows. So what CapQuest is a tool that unifies all of this, right? And simplifies a lot of these processes to give founders complete transparency and clarity of their ownership, both in terms of how it is today and also what potentially can be in the future as you model these out, right? So it abstracts away a lot of these complexities of all of these tools and financial instruments that we discussed, right? To build a solution that really adheres to these challenges that founders face.
So are you the only solution in the market?
No, we're not the only solution in the market.
GCC?
We're the ones that were built locally. We always say that we're built in the region for the region. Yes, in that case,
yes. Because obviously part of our fundraising journey,
right?
And also, I would say institution being aware of Tribe, because we're quite out in the open.
Right.
We're building in public.
Right.
I've had quite a number of inquiries for cap table management.
Right.
Right. We don't need to name some of them, but they're quite popular names out there. So what would you say your approach to cap table management servicing differs from these parties?
Absolutely. No, great question. I think what has been key factors in our success, first from a product perspective, we really focus on automation, right? And again, distilling this complexity of all of these tools into a solution that abstracts away a lot of these difficulties and nuances into a solution that, again, really focuses on automation, very clear communication and user experience. So that we're very proud of, and that's been a key element of our success. But I think more than anything, the reason that we are, I think, growing the way that we're growing in the market and gaining traction as we're gaining, really is also a testament to our client services and account management across the board. If I can just take kind of a step back here, right? So cap table management, understandably so, is a domain that not a lot of founders have experience with, right? And that's, again, quite understanding. We always say that cap table is kind of at the forefront or the crossroads of legal frameworks and financial modeling, right? So of course it's a daunting, sometimes intimidating, task to have to do.
Complex domains in isolation.
Let alone together, right? And so a lot of founders invariably end up, again, understandably so, procrastinating this and having to push this a little bit later. And they always know in the back of their mind they need to get to this eventually, right? And so our entire ethos, not only as a product but as a company, has been to simplify this process, right, for founders and help them bridge the gap between their understanding of cap table today and what it needs to be. So not only do we emphasize this a lot from a product perspective, but equally as important from a client services and account management perspective, we handhold a lot of founders that we work with, right? So the first stage that we work with founders is whenever they sign up to CapQuest, we'll do a complete review of their cap table, help them understand what they've done so far. Whatever discrepancies that we find, we help them adjust those, recommend what they can do to fix whatever needs to be fixed. And then we help them a lot, of course, on the actual onboarding onto the cap table. So really that scary, intimidating, daunting task that you need to do, which is to get your cap table structured and organized, we help remove that fear and get it done really much in a very fast manner and easy manner.
Okay, so interesting. Automation, right? So there's this I think it's a D33 agenda. One of the pillars is digital innovation or innovation economy. It talks about automation, blockchain, fintech, and all those type of stuff. So what I'm very curious to understand is, how much of that automation that a lot of these institutions speak about, even startup, is actually automation. So I would really love for you to explain how CapQuest actually applies automation to ensure that cap table management becomes a fun thing to do, not necessarily an easy thing to do, but an understandable thing to do, like you said, in terms of transparency and all those stuff. I would be interested in understanding how automation is really a core part of your solution.
Great question. So I think two examples that I'll give you that I think are super helpful, right? One is ESOPs, investing in general, right? So you can imagine a company that has 100 employees that have an ESOP, which is the case, and we have a few of those as well.
What are ESOPs, by the way?
Employee share ownership plans, right? So a stock option plan, an RSU
for employees.
For employees, exactly. It can also be for advisors, by the way, right? You can have plans for advisors, for other stakeholders in the business as well. But essentially, these are plans that you're going to allocate to members of your company with shares that you would like them to vest over the course of a few years, right? So you can imagine a company that has, let's say, 100 employees that they've all hired over the course of many different years.
Yeah.
Okay. Every employee is being given a plan that will vest over the course of 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay. That means that your cap table effectively is changing quite frequently, because today your shares vest, tomorrow my shares vest, tomorrow her shares vest, etc.
Depending on the grant date.
Now imagine, you've worked with Excel a lot. Imagine doing that manually, where every single month, and this is the challenge a lot of founders that do not use a tool like CapQuest, is that they should on a monthly basis update the cap table, right? And ensure that, you know, you have a consistency between the vesting structures and making sure that your issued basis is up to date.
That can become quite manual exercise.
Extreme manual. So today, you know, obviously on CapQuest, we went very, you know, deep in this element. So today we have different forms of vesting that you can account for, both time-based, performance-based as well too. And once founders set this up, and once it's set in the system, whether you have 2 or 3 or 5 or 100 employees on your company, you know that, you know, it's being automated and updated as you sleep, right? So on a month-by-month basis, or every single trigger, the cap table is up to date. The second example I think I'd give, and this has been a big differential, is with regards to SAFE conversions, right?
SAFE conversions, yeah.
So SAFE stand for Simple Agreement for Future Equity, right? So it's a financial instrument that startups use to fundraise at earlier stages when they don't yet have a valuation in place, right? And I'm happy to talk more about those. So SAFE conversions, there are two types of SAFE. So there's what's called post-money SAFE, where you attribute a cap to that conversion, or discount-based SAFE, right? Post-money SAFEs are relatively straightforward in the conversion logic, but discount-based SAFEs do have quite complications in terms of the conversions when it comes to converting those SAFE holders to stakeholders, right? A lot of founders make mistakes at this stage. So within CapQuest, we have a tool that automates that conversion as well too, ensuring that you're removing kind of any potential human error in that, and you automate the conversion so that those SAFE holders, when they do become stakeholders, are automatically done so, and the underlying math is done so correctly, right? And just those two, honestly, are things that when we show this to founders, a lot of them don't even know that this possibility exists, right? They're like, oh, wow, this tool exists, right? I can have this, because they know that, you know, they know that it's a challenge that will come at some point, having to convert the SAFEs, having to audit and make sure that, you know, reconcile the vesting structures. So having a tool like CapQuest that automates all of that really removes a lot of that operational hurdle and concerns that they have, that they're going to have to do that at some point.
Now, Mark, I love that for the following reasons. I just mentioned, well, that we met each other at Dubai FinTech Summit. When you mentioned that you were working on this product or service, cap table management, CapQuest, no idea how complex that could be. Fundraising in general,
for sure,
and then the operational angle, actually operating and keeping up to date all the investor safes, ESOPs, and those type of things. Now, obviously, with Tribe, we're raising capital. We're raising through safes.
Correct, yeah.
And our employees are also on the ESOPs, advisors are on ESOPs. So now, being an operator, I start to see the actual complexity behind managing it. If I would do it manually or through Excel, right? And I recall that we had, you did a demo, right, for us.
Right.
And two things, exactly those two things you mentioned were for me like, okay, we need to get you guys on board. One, ESOPs, right? It's a tedious process to get it approved through the board, you know, the vesting schedules and those type of stuff, let alone actually manage how those actually vest over time, right? Yeah. And the solution that you guys brought is actually encouraging us and also other startups that you work with to do the first time right. Once you do the first time right, basically input in the right input, then basically your tool is able to cover all the vesting schedules, conversions, etc. Right? So that's good. So that's a great discipline. Secondly, when it comes to safes, what I love about your platform is that it, and probably we'll touch upon that a bit later, different elements about safe. You mentioned dilution. You mentioned pre-money, post-money. You mentioned MFNs. We have discussed MFNs before. What's that again? MFN is?
Most favored nation.
Most favored nation. Yeah, exactly. We mentioned price rounds. So there's quite a lot of stuff that goes into safe management, right? So being a builder, being in Tribe now, there's a lot of stuff that honestly, I think cap table management in particular through your solution has really helped us to manage all of this so that we don't become a second Antoine, if you will.
Exactly.
So let's talk about capital raising. What are, would you say, 2 or 3 things that you see founders doing wrong or they do not consider as they're raising funds for their businesses?
Yeah, so I think I actually want to touch on safes for one second as well,
go for it.
right? So we do encounter founders that still have a little bit of kind of a confusion. Should they do a price round or a safe round? I'd love to kind of just touch on that as well too.
Go for it.
But when it comes to fundraising, especially early stages, right? If you look at the alternative to a safe, which would be a price round or an equity round, if you will, when doing that, founders and investors, they have to deliberate and agree on a series of elements, right? From share price to the percentage. And with that also comes, of course, having to agree on what are the legal matrices around this, right? The shareholder subscription and all term sheets and all these things. And that can be really time consuming and expensive in many cases, right?
What does it incur legal costs, right?
Exactly. 100%. And what a safe allows you to do is to defer this process of having to structure all of these things to a Series A stage or a later on stage, right? And a safe really, again, just to clarify, it stands for simple agreement for future equity, right? The emphasis there is future equity because safe holders are not yet shareholders in the company. They're stakeholders, but not yet shareholders, right? And so it is a standard format that founders can raise capital without having to go again into the details and depths of all of these legal requirements that you will need to get to at later stages, right? So we always recommend founders to start looking from a safe perspective, right? And looking at safes initially. The other thing as well too, initially as a founder, you're building a product, maybe you're pre-revenue, maybe even pre-product itself. It's very difficult to establish what a fair valuation would be, right? And this again is what a safe does, right? Is it allows the investor to invest in you now, and the carrot that you give him is one of 2 things, right? Either you give him a valuation cap to say, listen, invest in me now. When we do raise our next round, we'll make sure to convert you at a value that is going to be lower than what we converted. Right? So let's say, simple example, you're raising at a cap of $10 million. Maybe you raise your next Series A at 15 or 20. These safe holders will be converted at 10. So they'll receive a significant discount in relation to those that
there's an embedded discount, if you will.
Exactly. And the second sweetener that you can do, which is an and/or function, right? It's either you can either do discounts or you can do a post-money cap, or you can do both, right? But the discount says, okay, alternatively, you say, listen, regardless of what I raise it in the next round, let's say I raise it at 20, assuming there's no cap here, you'll get a 20% discount on that as well too. So there's a carrot to investors, and more than anything, it allows you to defer all of this legal deliberation that you need to do for later stages, right? So we always recommend this to founders is raise through safes. An interesting story with us, actually, when we began our fundraise, we wanted to do it using a safe, right? And within a month of our raise, an investor came in and said, "Listen, I don't want to use a safe thing. I want direct equity, and I want 20% of the company." And he offered us the full round right then and there. Within a month of our raise, and
that's a sweetener right there.
It is, but I'll tell you, we thought a lot about it because we would have closed our round very quickly. It would have been great. But of course, we disagreed on the valuation at the time that he had. And so we said, we decided to continue with our safe round, which we did. So, again.
Wait a sec. So what is the thinking that went? Honestly, because, it's money now.
It's money now.
Valuation, we can have a conversation about it. But I'm very interested to understand why you as builders, operators, startup venture builders decided against it and said, look, we're just going to extend the round, risking,
absolutely,
that it might take a bit longer. You probably have smaller safes because one of the risk, I guess I see in the market is stacking safes, right? Correct, which then becomes complexity, whereas you actually want simplicity. Right? So really interested in understanding, what thinking went into that to actually defer that.
Don't get me wrong, we thought long and hard about it. We thought long and hard about it for sure. I think ultimately what it came down to was that we were going to dilute ourselves a little bit more than what we wanted to at the time. And at earlier stages, it's really important to protect yourself, to protect your equity in the company, right? So we didn't want to over dilute ourselves at that stage. So we disagreed a bit on the valuation side.
Okay.
I think had the valuation been one that we would have been more comfortable with, we would have, I think, entertained it more and maybe even gone ahead.
I see.
Right. So it really was an element there on the valuation side.
So was it, so do I understand correctly that it was a dilution?
We would have been, of course.
It was a dilution
conversation. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what it was.
A valuation, consequently dilution element as well too. But I also want to go back to what you were saying about kind of these complexities. So the other thing you mentioned, stacking safety. That's another thing which we always advise founders. First of all, go with safety if you can.
Yeah.
Obviously, just to close on this point, if you do have a company that is revenue generating, that is in a particular vertical where you can establish forward revenue and you can establish a healthy multiple for that, maybe then you can justify doing a price round, right? But for earlier stage companies, it's rarely that case. And so finding a fair
especially
valuation,
with pre-revenue, key product, like you said,
very
pre-operational,
very difficult.
Especially for us, Tribe, given that, well, not only Tribe, but definitely startups that operate in the regulated space.
100%.
You need, specific licenses. You need to be approved by certain institutions and partnerships that need to be validated, approved, certified before you can actually put the engine on.
Yep.
It gives you, well, it takes quite a long while before you can actually make revenue.
Absolutely.
Right. So that in itself is a risk. And then I can imagine, and staying in the present, recently, even the conflict that we have been part of, that obviously also has impact on a lot of, I would argue, startups. And therefore extending rounds, further stacking, says maybe through angel investors, etc.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a real thing, right?
It is. I mean, we do see founders that will do multiple rounds on safes. What we always recommend there is to keep a very tight-knit understanding of the underlying math, because it is going to get complicated down the line once you need to convert all of these.
Yeah.
So for sure, keep a very tight-knit understanding of what that is. And we help with that, by the way, as well, too. So anyone who has those challenges, do let us know. But I think also, you mentioned not only stacking safes, but things like the underlying clauses within a safe.
Yes.
So you talked about MFN clause. Very important that you also, review. This is what not a mistake, but a common issue that we see founders make sometimes is they will, they'll deliberately, they'll sign a safe and they have a basic understanding, but not an in-depth understanding, right? Yeah. So make sure that you review things in absolute detail. And a clause like an MFN clause has serious implications, right? Which an MFN, again, most favored nation understands that if I sign a safe today with you, and in the future sign a safe with better conditions, in other words, a lower cap, better discounts, I then need to apply these same conditions, favorable conditions, to those who have an MFN clause, right? And so the math can get really complicated because you might have investors who don't have a clause, who do have this clause. And so keep a very good understanding of what it is that you're signing. And thereafter, by the way, once you do sign an MFN clause, remember that any safe you sign, if it's going to be renegotiated, there is going to have a retroactive impact on the ones that you've already signed, right? So keep it very tight-knit.
So that's a good point, actually. So that's actually what an MFN commands.
Exactly.
Right? It commands equality across safe holders, in particular those that came in first.
Those that came in first and that have the clause in it.
And have the clause in it.
Exactly.
Okay,
yes,
cool.
Exactly.
So
exactly. Usually it might be, for example, a lead investor who might require this, understandably so, right?
Which makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So actually we have covered 3 things already. So as part of capital raising, having a good view, perspective on dilution, dilution risk, safe stacking.
Yeah.
And the third one is understanding the legal terms within the safes.
Correct, yeah.
Going back to the second point, safe stacking. Can you maybe highlight an example, whether it's your own company or the previous company or some of your clients where you have seen safe stacking and how that has worked against a founder?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what ends up happening when founders invariably stack a couple of different rounds, especially those that aren't paying attention to what the dilutive impact is, if you're not going to be modeling the impact of what these cumulative or compounding safes are going to do, many times when we then run the math for them, and by the way, this will happen sometimes in just two safes that have been stacked, right? They're quite surprised at what the impact there is, right, across the board, especially when you take into account the fact that you have ESOPs that have now been put into place, and you have maybe another investor. all of a sudden what they thought was their equity in reality has been significantly diluted, right? So I think the core message there is update your cap table if manually, right, at every single event, and try your best to model out what the impacts are going to be ahead of time as well. Okay. So that's happened a few different times.
Okay, that's interesting.
One more thing I want to say, sorry, within safes. Sorry, I just want to talk about another common example of issues that we see.
Okay.
Sometimes we see safes that actually have conflicting clauses in terms of pre-money and post-money as well too.
Okay.
And a lot of times founders are maybe sent a template by someone that they believe has done kind of what needed to be done, and in reality they have a stake. They haven't, right?
Haven't. Yeah.
And you'll be surprised it happens quite often as well too. So very important to keep an eye on the terminology and nomenclature so that there's consistency.
That is very good.
Between always a post money to make sure it's post money and worth pre-money. For those that are raising through safes, please do use post money now. Pre-money is no longer really used.
This is an interesting point because this is an actual practical point that we at Tribe have also dealt with. We generally use our own safe templates.
Right, exactly.
Right? So that we have control over the terms and conditions, the legal nomenclature that you just mentioned. So 2 examples. There was one institutional investor that we onboarded. They use their own safe templates. So we identified that and then ensured, at least it was a conversation, like how can we align our standard safes with the safes that you are offering us to ensure that everybody gets a fair deal, right? So I think that's one. Not just signing and being happy about, oh wow, we just landed a big institutional investor, sign it across, right? But is already the X marks the spot, but really reading through the terms and conditions and understanding what risk you're actually onboarding, because if you don't understand it now, it will come out at a later stage, and then basically you're too late.
That's
right. So that's one. A second one is another institutional investor. Again, own template, and in our case, because you were just talking about pre-money, post-money. In our first round, we used a pre-money safe. Whereas this institutional party wanted to set up a post-money safe. So then you end up, having a conversation about, okay, but then what's going to be the valuation cap, those type of stuff. So practical example, we have went through it, and it's something you don't want to go through. So to your point, and we spoke to you about it actually, and your advice again was post-money. But I guess for us, pre-money at that point in time, I guess was the efficient route at that point in time, but definitely going forward, even with the future raises, considering post money. So just wanted to highlight that as founders ourselves, we have.
I'll be very honest. I mean, we've unfortunately had to have some pretty uncomfortable conversations with founders to inform them of the reality of what's happened in terms of dilution, where they thought what they thought was the case really was very, very different. And this is why it's important to really maintain and gain complete control and understanding of your cap table from day one. It starts out simple, right? 3-4 founders, everyone has an equal percentage, it's fine. But very quickly, it can get very complicated and things can catapult. So update it as often as you can and have that discipline is really, really important.
Well, you know us for a while now. You have helped us onboard to your platform. What are some of the things you saw with us? Honest feedback.
So Antoine handled most of the account management there. So, but I think, I'd love to know more. I'm curious to know what you guys faced.
Funny enough, I think it's funny because the first feedback we got from him is that he was surprised how well we have managed the safes. So in my mind, I think, well, this is number one priority to get the safes right.
100%.
Right. So for him saying that means that there are enough others, whether it's institutions, venture builders, those that are raising capital that do not sufficiently think about the implications of safes. Right. So whilst the feedback was good, on the other side, it was quite concerning. I mean, it doesn't impact me, but it's concerning for the venture building ecosystem in general, right? So that's why I'd love what we're doing right now, so that we can, create some transparency and education, if you will,
for sure,
in this space. One other thing that I like about your platform, and it syncs again to capital raising, is scenario modeling.
Yeah.
Can you speak about that a bit? Scenario modeling within
Sure.
your platform.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, a lot of times founders, not only founders, but investors are actually asking founders increasingly so to have a clear picture of what the future is, right? To have an understanding in terms of, let's say, a new future fundraising round, what is going to be the dilutive impact across all stakeholders and me specifically as an investor, once you do raise your Series A, once you do raise your Series B, if I don't participate in these upcoming rounds, right? Or if I do participate in these rounds. So again, just going back to kind of the challenges that we faced as founders ourselves, that was a question a lot of times founders and investors were asking us, hey, listen, what, can you model out if I participate in this round? If I don't, what's going to be my dilutive impact? How much will I be effectively diluted to, right? So the first thing that we really focused on is building a scenario model that gives founders the capacity to model out a future fundraising round, take into account all the potential parameters. So converting your safes, right? Let me see what my cap table is going to look like post-conversion, right? Without actually converting them just yet. So you have a very clear picture.
I really love that.
Okay, post-safe. What if in this round we raise, 2 million or 1 million, right? In addition to this, we do a bridge round. What's the impact of that? Just that bridge round. Maybe in this next round, the VC might ask us to issue a pool ahead of time, right? Because pools have dilutive impact as well too. Okay, now
they would like to see that impact
ahead of time as well
makes
too.
sense. Yeah.
So again, we went very granular to give founders really a very strong module that allows you to kind of anticipate what that dilutive impact across the board.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we built as well too, really importantly, is a liquidity distribution as well to scenario modeling, right? To understand the impact or the potential liquidity distribution in the event of a sale of a company, right? Take into account all the nuances of share classes, all the nuances of the rights and preferences that investors may have.
Liquidation preferences.
Exactly.
Those are like hidden.
Those are
hidden stuff. Actually, you guys reminded me to actually have a look at it.
Absolutely.
Normally you talk about capital raising, but liquidity is as important, especially when it comes to liquidation and preferences. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
no,
we can speak about
talk about that. Yeah, for sure. So liquidity preferences, right? They fall within share classes, right? Which are designated type of shares that are set aside for different members of the company. So employees might be given a particular share class, founders might have a different share class. And a lot of times investors require what are called preferred share classes that have certain rights and preferences and privileges that other share classes don't have.
Yeah.
And one of those might be liquidity preferences, right? Honestly, one of my favorite subjects, and this week I was speaking actually at Warasea to the new sandbox class about about this as well too, and it was really a very interesting conversation. So liquidity preferences really they define and dictate the order and amount of who gets paid in the event of a sale of a company.
Yeah,
right. And
which is different from how much share.
Absolutely.
And that's an important distinction.
Very important distinction.
Very important 100%. Distinction. Yeah.
So there are three parameters that we can talk about, right? The first is the seniority, right? Which establishes the order of who gets paid out first.
Yes.
So an investor, for example, with seniority 1, right? If he's the only one with that share class, he's the first one to get paid out, right?
And the payout is generally 100%?
We'll give you...
We'll give it go for it. I'll let you have it.
The second element there is your multiple. A lot of investors will put money in the request for a multiple, right? So I put $1 million into your company, for example, right? If I have a multiple of 2, it means that I need to receive back 2 regardless of what you sell it for. Assuming I have a liquidity preference of 1. And I'll give you a practical example here.
Wait a second. Are these liquidity events predetermined or?
No. This is in the event of a sale of a company.
In the event of a sale of a company.
Exactly. So let's give a practical example, right? I invest $1 million into your company, okay? And I have liquidity preference. I have seniority of 1, and I have a multiple of 2.
Yeah.
You sell the business tomorrow for, let's say, $3 million.
Dang.
I get 2. And the rest is distributed amongst your founders and other people.
Why as a founder would I sign up for that?
That's a very good question. At the end of the day, liquidity preference, like anything, is a negotiation, right?
Okay.
What a lot of VCs will do, understandably so, is they'll put a multiple of 1.
Okay.
Saying, listen, at least I need to recover my money.
Okay.
Right?
I mean,
that's understandable.
Right? That's
understandable. Yeah. Exactly. Now, in the same example, right, let's say I ended up owning 40% of your company.
Yes.
Okay, with the $1 million that I put, hypothetically.
Yeah.
And you sell the company tomorrow for, let's say, 10 million.
Yes.
Right? In this case, I can either act on my liquidity preference of receiving the 2 million, or I can receive 40% of the actual exit amount.
Correct.
Which is 40% of the 10 million would be 4 million.
Yeah.
So I can choose whatever one most benefits me. In this case, it would be the 4 million. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. So is that option is given to the investor?
Exactly. So the liquidity preference is either.
So it's either or.
It's either. Exactly. It's either. Now,
okay.
Participating rights is and.
Yeah.
It's the infamous double dip, right? And then let's say the same example, okay?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I know.
Really?
Yes, exactly.
Who made wait, give me a sec. Who made these rules? You lawyers.
This is why you need to pay really close attention.
Are you kidding me?
What it is that you're signing. Yeah, it's the infamous double dip, right? So in this example, I put $1 million into your company, okay? And I own, let's say, 40%, okay? And I have a multiple of 2. Let's just keep the math.
That's predatory. Sorry.
Thank you for saying that. 100%.
Sorry, this is me just putting out my value system.
It's predatory.
Really?
Yeah. Not only will I receive my multiple back, I then also participate, in this case, 40% of whatever was remaining as well goes to me. It's the infamous double dip as well too. Yeah. So liquidity preference is one of my favorite subjects because most founders have that exact reaction. It's like, are you kidding me?
From everything we discussed, dilution, stacking, terms and conditions, discounts, MFNs.
Yeah.
I feel, and probably you can see it, I feel like this part, liquidation events, or what do you call it? Liquidity preferences.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the kill switch.
It is.
If you don't get it right.
Absolutely. If you don't pay attention to what it is that you're signing, 100%. Now, again, I want to just mention one thing. It is predatory for sure, but I will mention, though, that it is not very common that you see, participating
Have you seen that in the GCC?
I can't speak for the GCC in general. We haven't yet seen that. Obviously, our platform has accounted for that because it is a reality of what is out there, for sure. But it is a term that it is a feature that is increasingly present in.
One more thing. Yeah. Can you answer the question why a founder would accept this?
Look, I think at the end of the day, it's a negotiation that you have, and it's an element of leverage, if you will, at that moment, right?
Interesting.
I think why they would accept it also comes down, as I mentioned, to what leverage they have in the moment of the negotiating with founders. But be careful. Obviously, it can have significant impact for yourself and for other members as well too. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm still in shock.
Yeah.
So
it's a really cool subject, though.
I mean, probably I'm not the only one. There are multiple venture builders there. Look at the cap tables from a future equity perspective, right? Looking at the safes. Well, this is how the conversion will look like. But then actually this liquidity preferences is a quite strong counterweight to, whatever the equity share. I mean, it's almost irrelevant almost at a sales point, right? Because a liquidity preference or that option can potentially give you much more than based on share price, a number of shares you have in general.
I think I just wanted to emphasize that it is not it's not extremely common, especially here.
Okay, so maybe I'm overemphasizing this.
I just want to mention this. Participating rights exists conceptually and exists.
Okay.
And don't get me wrong, there are institutional investors that invest in this form and in this matter, and they have participating rights, but it is not as common.
Okay.
That being said, do review all term sheets.
So that's the lesson for today.
100% across the board. Every legal document that's sent to you, make sure that you're reviewing it.
Be aware
in great detail.
Don't just sign anything.
100%.
Make sure you review everything. These days you have ChatGPT, by the way, or Claude. You can just run it through it. Make sure you got yourself covered. Another thing that I wanted to understand from your view, we're not the only ones raising in this ecosystem.
Yeah.
Generally, I hear matrices like raise 12 to 18 months, right? You mentioned future revenue, raise against future revenue.
Right.
Is there something you can speak about regarding this? What is this 12, 18 months thing? Where does it come from? What would you generally advise builders, capital raisers?
I think it's really important for founders to remember that investors are not investing in runway, right? They're not investing in a runway. They're investing.
They do have questions, a lot of questions about runway.
They do, but that's because your runway is a means to an end.
Yes.
Right. So focus on that end.
Yes.
Ultimately, what you're raising for, and what the runway is for a particular milestone, right? That you're able to reach and then raise your next stage of the company. So let's look at this from a framework of, let's say, pre-seed, seed, and let's say Series A, for example, right? So pre-seed, what you're, again, gross generalization here, right? But what you're raising for at a pre-seed stage, the milestone, if you will, right? You're looking to build your product. You're looking to launch it, right? And maybe build an initial proof of concept. And maybe some early initial tractions. So maybe the end there that you're looking for, the milestone there is the launch of the product, right? And an initial POC, whatever that may be. The initial users, some revenue, nothing too crazy, right? That's what your pre-seed emphasis is on, right? And so it's okay to have this really cleared out and clarified at the moment of fundraising with investors. Listen, this is what we're raising for, right? And that's the milestone that we have. Whether that's going to take 12 months or 18 months is separate to the conversation. What you want to build is this, right?
Got it.
On the seed stage, if we can talk about that for a second, that's, you have a bit of a proof of concept. Now what you want to do is you want to prove potential scalability, right? You have a product, it's out in the market, and you've tested different go-to-market strategies, and you've proven that this is scalable, that there's a potential to scale. Maybe the North Star there is certain revenue milestones that you want to reach, right? Maybe it's break even, maybe it's profitability. What are the milestones that you want to establish in the seed stage, right? But certainly it's more proving that there is repeatability in what you've built and that you can scale. And then your Series A is all about scalability, right? Maybe it's focusing on entering in another market or another vertical within what it is that you're doing, right? So to prove you have a proven product, proof of concept, you've built it, you've proved that it's repeatability, and then you can scale. The 12 to 18 months, I think in general, was just the appropriate amount of time in the pre-seed stage, maybe to build something, right? To prove at the seed stage, to reach a scale that you can, again, prove repeatability, and then, and then thereafter. But I think more and more we're in the world that we're living in today, you're able to really shorten that learning curve tremendously. And a lot of people are building and launching companies and products a lot faster, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if that 12 to 18 month kind of rule or standard changes as well too, right? So that's kind of where it comes from.
Makes sense.
I do want to mention as well, being very realistic here, right? There is a direct correlation between obviously the amount of money that you raise and your odds of success, right? That's just the simple reality of it, right?
Can you expand on that a bit?
Raises, I mean, it's quite straightforward, but if the more a company raises, right, the more times, the more of course leverage that you have, and capital that you have, to test different things, right?
Yes.
And to pivot in a sense where needed, and to scale and to hire the right people, right? Invariably in companies, we end up, in that scaling process, you're going to hire maybe the wrong people, right? You're going to go into a market that you shouldn't have gone into. You're going to launch a product that you should have been focusing on. All of that costs time and capital, right?
Correct.
For those that have a significantly finite amount of capital, that can be the end of that company, right? So the more that you raise, the more you're able to test things, the more you're able to look at new markets, new verticals, hire more people. So it kind of makes sense, right, in general. So the reason I'm saying this is because, a lot of founders are also understandably so worried about dilution early on. And you do hear people saying, that they regret having raised this much in the beginning. The reality is that's a rare occurrence, right? Most founders don't have that luxury to say that, oh man, we raised too much. So, I think buying yourself, that 12 to 18 month run rate is also what allows you to be able to have enough time to test this out, understand if there are going to be pitfalls, there are going to be speed bumps along the way, and you're going to have to readjust as you go. But that's where it came from. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if as things are progressing, companies are able to launch products faster, test them faster, and shorten that curve a lot of times as well too.
I think this is interesting. We probably, like other venture builders, we do get questions about cap table, runway, burn multiples. I mean,
all these things.
All of these things. And I think what at least CapQuest has enabled us to do is respond quickly to those type of questions. How does your diluted capital stack look like?
Exactly.
We can run a scenario, and then here you go. These are the number of shares, and this is what it means in terms of dilution. And by the way, like you said, these are the ESOPs that we're going to grant as well. So I love that functionality. Another thing that or questions that we receive, well, not explicitly, but it's an implicit parameter that has been looked at, is capital efficiency, right? So to your point being, raising capital is one thing, because I know internally we have had a conversation. If you raise too much, what are you going to spend it on? Do you have enough absorption capacity? To your point. And if you raise too less, then probably you end up going back to the market and say, look, I need bridge sales and those type of stuff, right? But then capital efficiency actually tells us, there's a number, a parameter that tells us how efficient have you deployed capital into the business and turned it into revenue metric, right? And it doesn't need to be profitability, but it's about revenue, the speed into revenue, right? So my question on that point is, what do you generally see in the GCC market, regarding capital raise and how quickly ventures are able to actually translate that into revenue?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, I can't speak for the GCC in general. I think that, one thing that we always speak about, Antoine, he always emphasizes, the importance not only of modeling and understanding your capital, but also on the financial projection side of things as well too, is especially if you have businesses that are able to start bringing in revenue at an earlier stage, you're able to offset your cost basis, right? To revenue, with revenue. So all of a sudden, your fundraise that bought you a 12, 18-month run rate, all of a sudden, if you're able to compensate some of that with revenue, you're extending that tremendously as well too, right? I wouldn't be able to tell you how quickly companies are able to do this. What I will tell you, and I think you'll know this more than most, is that capital is no longer cheap, right? And I think the idea that companies are able to just fundraise and focus on just kind of gross merchandising GMV or gross booking value or just transactional value without looking at revenue has changed. This has changed tremendously. So, VCs and I think the ecosystem at large are focusing a bit more on revenue generation and profitability as well too, which I think is a healthy metric in general to have. But I think we always like to emphasize the importance of looking at how your finances and your revenue specifically will be able to compensate your cost base and maybe extend that run rate. So maybe what was a 12, 18-month run rate, all of a sudden is 2 years, is more than that, as well too.
I mean, it would be great if whatever capital you deploy actually gets you to profitability, and therefore raising capital becomes more a strategic choice.
Exactly. That's a position that you want to be in.
Position of strength.
You always
want
to
where
be
you want to be.
100%.
Right.
For sure.
Cool. This is nice. So talked a lot about these technicalities, but real world technicalities. Something else, real world technicality is ESOPs, right? How you bring on board employees and how you actually keep employees, right? In particular in the startup industry, I would say arguably, but correct me if I'm wrong, where I would say the perk is, the almost infinite upside, if you will, right? In exchange for, working extremely hard, committed to making this thing work, whether it's passion, dream, solving an important problem in the world, right? So how important is it to get this right, ESOP?
That's a great question. I want to go back. It's funny. Part of our interview process, I mentioned in our design stage, right, is we interviewed, as I mentioned before, many CFOs, and across the board, what was really interesting for us to hear, especially those of Series B, C, and even these pre-IPO companies, was exactly this point, which is CFOs would tell us always that they have a really hard time translating the value of ESOPs to their employees, right? So a couple of things I want to touch on that. First is, at the end of the day, if you're not communicating to employees and to stakeholders alike, right, whether it's advisors that are also being given shares, right, ultimately what those shares translate to in terms of percentage ownership in the business, in terms of the potential capital valuation that they have as well too, it is very difficult for them to get lost in translation, right? So, the way a lot of times companies operate is they'll have an ESOP in place, you'll sign it on your first day of the company, listen, these are going to invest over the course of the next 4 years, and you never hear of them again, right? They're technically, supposedly being vested on the back end, if you will, but you never really know what's happening. So having the ability to communicate with your employees, right? Be it quarterly, be it monthly, explain, listen, by the way, Dennis, these are your new shares. This is how much is vested. This is what they translated to into percentage of ownership into the company. And of course, what that represents in terms of capital ownership effectively, right, is really, really important. So if you're using ESOPs, employee share ownership plans, as a retention tool, as you absolutely should, and this is a growing trend around the world, make sure that you're communicating this to everyone that has an ESOP in place, right? Be it quarterly, be it monthly, really, really important. Obviously, as you scale, it becomes more difficult to do that, right? You can't have individual calls because it is also quite personalized who was given which percentage and
for which reasons and those type of things.
So again, not to plug CapQuest in too much, but this is where we really emphasize a lot of focus in terms of stakeholder dashboards, right? So employees are given this transparency from day one, where they have complete understanding of their ESOP position, which plan they were granted, which type of share class they were granted, how many shares they were granted, how many of those have vested, how many of those are yet to vest, what the end vesting date is as well too, with visual share price, what that corresponds to in terms of equity capital change, and how they've been diluted as well too, right? And a clear picture of dilution, and specifically as well of their vesting position in the company as well too, right? So they have a visual understanding and context over what those shares really mean. And more than that, we'll send monthly emails to all employees informing them of their new vesting and how
that happens through CapQuest.
Through CapQuest.
Oh wow! Okay.
So if you have shares that vest on a monthly basis or quarterly basis or yearly basis, at each of those instances, employees are sent emails saying, "Hey, congrats on your new vesting. These are the number of shares that you now own of the business. This is what you've unlocked, etc., etc." And that's been really important to create that sense of clarity, right, for both founders and for employees. And we believe that ESOPs are a great tool to align incentives between the company and everyone that's working for the general vision that you guys have, right? And so for sure, I think it's fundamental to have this clarity from day one.
So I think, thank you for expanding on that. So obviously it's one thing for the company to be very clear and transparent about how the ESOPs work.
Right.
I would also argue that as an ESOP owner, once that has received the grant, an employee or an advisor, there's also responsibility from your side, right? Being, other than putting the hours in, opening up your network, like some of the advisors do, or some of the angel investors do, open up your distribution channel and all those things. But also seeing that this is value that we're creating together.
Absolutely.
Right. And the more we come together as I almost said, we are family. But that's what it is, right? It is. So the more we contribute to making this product, this service work, it benefits
everybody,
right? And I think part of it would be for us as founders and venture builders to also communicate, make that part of the communication, right? That the more you contribute, whether it's relationships or other angel investors, or open up your distribution channel, or telling us which events we should be going to, right? These are all values, well, not necessarily monetary, but these are values that can definitely have impact on whatever happens with the company in terms of valuation and future rounds, right? So I think there's a responsibility for those as well. 100%. Other than the company.
For sure.
Hey, let's talk in the end, around the end of this conversation, and I really love what we have covered so far. But what I also want to cover is CapQuest.
Yeah.
Coming 6 to 12 months, what can we expect in terms of development from CapQuest? What are product updates? How does it look like? What are you going to ship to the masses?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really proud of what we've just recently shipped, and we'll launch we'll announce this very, very soon, but I'm happy to announce it here. We just finished integration with DocuSign.
Finally, guys, it's about time. It's about time. There was just one manual process that was still left, and they're about to solve it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So really, I think DocuSign has been a tremendous addition to the platform, because a lot of companies want to use this to be able to have employees, speaking of ESOPs, actually sign their grants directly to the platform, right? And they're now able to do so on CapQuest. So no longer need to leave the CapQuest ecosystem. They'll do so directly through CapQuest. So we can send the grant agreements, and we can modularize the entire document right then and there. They can send it out. Nice. It's signed, and it's kept within the platform there.
Same thing for SAYS, by the way?
To be added very soon. Very soon as well too. Yeah. No, great question. So I think what we always are priding ourselves on is adding more elements of clarity and transparency to founders and to employees. So we're constantly going to be remodeling, restructuring our dashboards to add a lot more insights into cap table health and all these parameters that I think founders have been asking us to do quite frequently as well too. We have a lot of other integrations in play as well that we're looking to do that will help facilitate a lot of the transactional elements within this, which I can speak to about in the next episode as well too.
Okay. Or offline.
Exactly. We're offline 100% as well too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, just speaking of safes and grants and everything, the template module that we built, a lot of founders have trouble and they have questions about structuring the right type of templates. So we're adding a lot of elements and resources for them to be able to do this, whether it's safe agreements or grants agreements. So an entire module dedicated towards helping founders have a better understanding and execution capacity of these documents as well too is in the pipeline as well. And a lot more that we have structured and super excited for the coming semester as well too, man.
That's good. I already hear a number of things that are going to make my life a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. I want to mention one more thing as well too. One of the other big challenges that founders relate to us is the ability to communicate from an investor relations perspective back to investors, right? Whether it's quarterly reporting, whether it's KPI reporting, that has been a very common trend and requirement from the ecosystem. So we're launching something very soon with regards to that as well too that we're super excited about. And I think it's going to help bridge that gap between founders and investors and help improve that overall communication.
Marco came with goodies.
100%.
He's making my life easier.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marco.
Yeah, thank you.
Every block by block session, podcast. By the way, this is the #1 prop tech podcast of the UAE, and we're going global. Follow this space. Back to you, Marco.
Yeah.
You have run with us in this journey for a couple of months now, and we definitely see that continuing our relationship. You know a bit what we do, right? And Tribe, we are building out in the open, and that's why we're doing this, by the way, and that's why you're here, having real conversations about the journey of a venture builder. And I must say, fundraising, capital management is central to this, right?
Absolutely.
And I think we've fleshed that out quite significantly in this session. So, looking at Tribe and our road ahead, can you give me two things? Opportunities and obstacles.
Opportunities, I think you guys are, it's pretty clear. You guys are at the forefront of major shifts that can happen within the prop tech space in general, right? I think the way property transactionally is happening today within the ecosystem is how it's been for a long time. And I think you guys are at the forefront of changing that. So I think the upscale potential that you have is absolutely obvious. And I'm so excited for that journey. And I'm so excited to be a part of that journey as well and to participate and to help in any which way that we can as well too.
Participate. Will you invest in a token?
I would invest in token, yes.
Good, great.
100%.
You have
absolutely.
Founding Tribe member here.
Yeah, good. For sure. More to talk about that.
More to talk about
offline as well.
Offline as well.
Because I have some people I want to introduce you to.
Oh, really?
Anyway,
great. This is the nice thing about building in Dubai.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Building in Dubai. Maybe you can touch quickly on the ecosystem.
100%.
How was it for you to actually build in this ecosystem?
Man, I for sure. I think it's been a breath of fresh air and so refreshing to build in Dubai. And for a couple of reasons. One is the ecosystem at large. Founders here, I think by and large, I think this is testament to the fact is that we really want to see each other thrive.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
I think I'm yet to find a place in the world where there is this amount of encouragement and help that comes from the ecosystem to the ecosystem.
Yeah.
So just a quick example, we were both a part of Odyssea's accelerator. And I mean, I'll tell you, from that cohort of people, we have clients, we have partners, we've been introduced to investors.
Yeah.
We've been introduced to other clients from these members as well too. And I don't think there's a week that goes by that we're not introduced to potential partners and potential clients and potential, people that can help our ecosystem from our existing set of cohorts and partners, etc. And that's so refreshing to see. There's a genuine care to enrich the ecosystem from other founders as well too. And that's been so cool to see. And then I think there's a very strong alignment between the private and public sector, right? I think the government is doing a great job of just incentivizing a very rich ecosystem for us to thrive in and to do really well. So places that, you know, we kind of find ourselves in, whether it's the FHQ or, you know, Innovation One, the IFC, all these great hubs.
25H.
Exactly, 25H, exactly. Yeah. I think these are just, again, a testament to this great alignment that exists in the ecosystem. So I couldn't recommend it. Come build in Dubai. I couldn't recommend it more.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, we love building in Dubai.
100%. Yeah.
Obstacles.
Obstacles,
opportunity, obstacles.
Look, I think you guys are reaching the end of one of these big obstacles, right? Which is going to be on the licensing element of things. You can speak
so we're almost there.
Almost there, and
probably the moment this podcast comes out.
I think that's it. I think on the other side, I think really it's going to be an element of educating the ecosystem,
education,
right? Education for sure. Removing that barrier of understanding of what it is that you're doing and the risks around that as well too, because it is at the crossroads, if you will, of real estate tokenization, right? It is still
a convergence.
It's a convergence of one of the most traditional forms of assets, right, with one of the newest forms of assets, and you're putting those together, right? So for sure, you're going to have, I think, a challenge ahead of educating the ecosystem and the market in general as to what it is that you're doing. But again, to remove that whatever degrees of questions they may have around that, right? I think things like this are phenomenal for that. I think conversations that you have with the ecosystem are phenomenal for that. I think you guys are already along very much in that way. But keep pushing. By the way, we have that same challenge too. Captive management is, again, not a domain that people have experience with, right? So we have a lot of job in terms of educating the market of kind of best practices.
I would like to see.
And and I think we both have that journey ahead of us as well too, collectively.
Beautiful. Marco, I really want to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Really for coming all the way here.
Of course.
This was Block by Block, Future of Finance, the #1 prop tech podcast in the UAE, and we're going global. Cheers.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, man. Appreciate that.